All over the world, people take out loans to launch a startup, fly off on vacation, or buy their dream car. But there's one hyper-advanced tech hub where you drown in massive debt just for the baseline right to exist and commute to work. South Korea built one of the most powerhouse economies on the planet. But at what cost? Why does raising a single kid here cost a staggering $280,000, more than in the US, Germany, or France? Why do millions of young adults willingly hand over $500,000 in deposits to wealthy landlords just for the privilege of crashing in a concrete box? And the darkest question of all, why, in this perfect clockwork state, do 40 people intentionally end their own lives every single day, leaving behind nothing but apology notes? Today, we're dissecting the anatomy of the South Korean Depression. We'll find out exactly how a society hacked its own citizens into bio-robots. Grab a coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Unlike most nations, South Korea's wealth was built entirely on the backs of its own people. They don't have massive land masses, no oil rigs, no gold mines. Back in the day, the government had a brutal realization. There was nothing to extract from the dirt, so they had to extract from the brain. They went all in on human capital, and that gamble paid off tenfold. The Korean economic miracle is real, and it's spectacular. But who picked up the tab? Look at this map. This is the Seoul capital area. A tiny speck of land taking up just 11% of the country. Here's the insane part. Half of South Korea's entire population lives right here. Over 26 million people are literally packed like sardines into a single geographic dot. Out of this claustrophobic crush comes 70% of the nation's entire GDP. Locals have been grimly joking about this for years, calling their homeland the Republic of Seoul. You might say, so what? People flock to the capital for a better life everywhere. But in Korea, it's not a choice. If a young Korean doesn't want to waste their prime years in a ghost town full of retirees, there is exactly one option: pack your bags. Why? Because Seoul holds 80% of all major corporate headquarters and absolutely every top-tier university. Add in the ruthless Korean cult of education, where kids are hard-coded for ambition from the cradle, and everyone inevitably ends up in the capital. It's hyper-centralization on steroids. This sparks a rat race so intense it makes Squid Game look like a casual corporate team-building retreat. And right here, in this suffocating density, lies the root cause of the catastrophic suicide stats. Let's picture an average young Korean guy. He's smart. He did his mandatory military service. He survived the brutal academic meat grinder and actually landed a job. He makes about $35,000 a year, the national average. Doesn't sound too bad, right? Now he wants what any normal human being wants: to get married, have a kid, and buy an apartment. Just a standard 3-room flat in a Seoul suburb. We aren't talking about a luxury penthouse with a panoramic river view. Any guess how much that costs? A cool $1 million. There's a terribly boring economic metric called the price-to-income ratio. Basically, it calculates how many years you have to save your entire salary, every last cent, completely ignoring food, clothes, and taxes, to buy a standard apartment. To really grasp the sheer scale of the Korean anomaly, let's quickly look at this chart and compare Seoul to other global capitals. Look at this: 30 years. For 3 solid decades, our guy has to literally survive on solar energy, master photosynthesis, shower in the rain, and charge his phone exclusively at the office, all while wiring 100% of his income straight to the bank. And even then, it takes 30 years of non-stop grinding. Mathematically speaking, buying a home isn't just hard for him, it's impossible. Once the math clicks, our guy drops the dream of buying entirely. But he still needs a place to crash, and this is where the system delivers the kill shot. Honestly, hardcore Wall Street sharks would sweat looking at the Seoul real estate market. You think you can just drop $1,000 and rent a place like anywhere else in the world? Forget it. More often than not, you'll run into the local rental system called Jeonse. It sounds like a fairy tale: 0 monthly rent, nothing. But to get the keys, you have to wire the landlord a lump sum deposit of $300,000, $400,000, or even $500,000, up front, in cash. The contract is strictly 2 years. Welcome to the magic of late-stage capitalism, where the rich just get richer. Why would a landlord let you live there for free? Because he takes your $500,000 and leverages the hell out of it. He buys stocks or flips another property. You are essentially giving a wealthy boomer a massive interest-free loan. You are crowdfunding someone else's financial empire just for the right to sleep in a concrete box. Desperate, our guy starts looking at the deep outskirts and stumbles upon wolves. Regular monthly rent! He breathes a sigh of relief. Thank God, something normal. I'll pay my $1,000 and live in peace. But Korean capitalism doesn't let go that easily. Just for the privilege of paying that monthly grand, you get hit with another deposit. Sure, it's not the astronomical Jeonse money, but you still need to cough up anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 up front. You lock up a massive chunk of capital with the landlord, and then you pay rent on top of it. Just process the sheer absurdity of this. Everywhere else, people take out loans to level up their lives, to buy a sick car, launch a startup, or at least take a vacation. In South Korea, you go into crippling debt just for the baseline right to exist and hold down a job in Seoul. You haven't actually bought anything, but there's already a financial noose tight around your neck. By now, it probably makes sense why South Korea is drowning in this grim national depression and terrifying suicide stats. But wait, it gets worse. Unforgiving Seoul doesn't even leave people time to blow off steam. Because our guy had to rent way out in the boondocks to afford the deposit, his daily routine turns into a logistical nightmare. On average, a worker like him spends 2 to 4 hours commuting every single day. Let that sink in. 4 hours of your life, every damn day, thrown out the window of a packed, suffocating subway car. And keep in mind, this is happening in a country that consistently shatters global records for working hours among developed nations. This guy physically does not have the bandwidth for a personal life. Period. When is he supposed to date? When does he hang out with friends? When does he just stop, take a breath, and feel like a human being? Never. He has been reduced to a bio-robot, a walking function whose only purpose is to service a bank loan, just for the right to grab a few hours of sleep far away from the office. It's right here, in this endless Groundhog Day of crushing debt, chronic sleep deprivation, and absolute isolation, that the human psyche starts critically glitching out. You can't run on pure hustle forever. In this brutal survival mode, absolutely anyone will eventually burn out. In any Western country, a guy in this spot grabs a beer with friends, vents to his mom, or books a therapist. But we are in South Korea, and the local mindset amplifies this crisis to the absolute limit. To understand the true horror of the situation, we have to look at the bedrock: Confucianism. The Western world operates on a guilt culture. The Korean world is hardwired for a shame culture. Everything revolves on the concept of chemyeon, saving face. In Korea, you don't belong to yourself. You are the flagship investment project of your entire family. And that's not just a poetic metaphor. Look at this chart. See the staggering gap compared to the rest of the world? In Korea, the cost of raising a child relative to GDP per capita sits at a brutal 7.79. In plain English, to raise one kid from birth to 18, a parent has to work for almost 8 straight years, handing over 100% of their income and spending absolutely zero on themselves. According to Korean media, a single child sets a family back a mind-blowing $270,000 to $280,000. And a massive chunk of that cash is incinerated by the endless loop of private tutoring, hagwons. That's why Korean youth feel this crushing financial and moral weight from the second they learn to walk. Now imagine this. Our guy gets fired. He's carrying a massive loan that he took out just for the right to exist and grind in Seoul. How does he go to his parents and break the news? In the Korean paradigm, he didn't just make a mistake. He bankrupted the family's ultimate project and permanently nuked his parents' social credit with the neighbors. If you read suicide notes in the West, people usually pour out their pain. I'm hurting. The world is cruel. I can't take this anymore. But you know what you find in Korean suicide notes? Almost zero emotion. It's nothing but apologies. In 2014, a tragedy in the Songpa district shook all of Korea. A mother and her 2 daughters, trapped in a hopeless financial dead end, ended their lives together in their tiny rented room. On the table, the police found an envelope holding their last $500. The note read, "Dear landlady, please forgive us. This is the money for the final rent and bills. We are so sorry." People are dying from absolute soul-crushing poverty, yet their very last thought on this earth is making sure they don't become a financial liability to their landlord. Or look at the notes left by young guys who bombed a job interview or failed an exam. It's essentially a copy-paste template. "Mom, Dad, I am so sorry. You worked so hard to pay for my tuition, and I turned out useless. I don't want to waste your money anymore. I'm sorry I was born this way." You might ask, why not just go see a doctor or a therapist? It's the 21st century. Well, you can. But the Korean system has rigged a brutal trap here too. Imagine this. A Korean walks into a shrink's office in Seoul and says, "I'm breaking down. Please help." The doctor listens and slaps an F code on their medical record. That's the official tag for a psychiatric diagnosis. And it doesn't matter if it's severe clinical depression or just standard burnout. From that second on, that letter is a black mark. Insurance companies have access to these databases. If HR or security at a major corporation catches a whiff of your F code, you are quietly crossed off the promotion list. If you're job hunting, your resume goes straight to the shredder. The corporate logic is ice cold. Why would a flawless, clockwork capitalist machine want a cog that officially admitted it might snap? To be fair, the government did wake up to this disaster. Back in 2013, they tried to patch the system by introducing a safe Z code for general stress counseling. Legally, it doesn't nuke your career, but here comes the incredibly cynical catch. The safe code only works as long as you're just talking to the doc. The millisecond the psychiatrist prescribes you actual antidepressants or hardcore sleep meds, the system automatically tags you with the F code all over again. So the paralyzing fear hasn't gone anywhere. People know you can't talk your way out of severe clinical depression, but they are terrified to step foot in a clinic. One prescription could flatline their entire life. And there it is, the ultimate mental trap. You can't vent to your parents, you'll ruin the family's face. You're terrified to see a doctor, you'll catch an F code and nuke your career. You can't cry to your coworkers, they're your direct competitors. You are left completely alone with your despair in the middle of a sprawling megacity. But the pressure has to go somewhere. A person needs to blow off steam, to shut down that endless dread for the future, if only for a couple of hours, and forget about the 4-hour subway commutes. And the Korean system is happy to hand out the cure, the iconic little green bottle, soju. It's not just a national drink, it is South Korea's #1 antidepressant. Statistically, South Korea is one of the heaviest drinking nations on Earth when it comes to hard liquor. Every single night, millions of Koreans down cheap alcohol just to anesthetize their reality. Just so they can wake up tomorrow, commute to a job they hate, and forfeit another slice of their life to the bank. But soju has a treacherous side effect. It doesn't cure the pain, it only offers a temporary freeze. And the next morning, reality hits back twice as hard. Eventually, sitting in yet another traffic jam or staring at an empty bank account, a person realizes the green bottle stopped working. The anesthesia wore off. And when that happens, they only see one way out. According to Korean forensic experts, nearly 45% of all suicides in the country are committed under the influence of alcohol. And here is the most chilling part. The vast majority of these people had no official psychiatric diagnosis. They were just regular office workers who couldn't go to a doctor because they were terrified of getting fired. They drowned their pain in soju, until the alcohol finally hit the kill switch on their basic survival instincts. So, where does this perfect mental trap lead? The numbers speak for themselves. According to the latest official data for 2024, nearly 15,000 people took their own lives in South Korea. Let that sink in. 40 people every single day. For over a decade now, this has been the #1 killer of Korean youth. But 2024 brought a genuinely terrifying milestone. For the first time in history, suicide outpaced cancer to become the leading cause of death among 40-year-olds. Crushed by debt and the skyrocketing cost of raising kids, people are literally being chewed up and spit out by the system. And the worst part? You can't fix this with a cosmetic patch. The government is desperately trying to treat the symptoms. They roll out safe psychiatric codes, hand out one-time baby bonuses, and beg corporations to chill out. But that's like slapping a Band-Aid on an open fracture. To stop this epidemic of despair, the state has to completely tear down and rebuild its entire economic engine. They need to literally dismantle the Republic of Seoul and decentralize corporations to other regions to cool off the housing market. They'll have to shatter the private tutoring industry that leeches hundreds of thousands of dollars from families. They need to nuke the culture where a human being's worth is tied exclusively to an exam score and a line on a resume. And if the government doesn't rewrite the rules of the game in the next few years, this flawless, neon-lit capitalist machine will eventually just devour itself. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to see more of the dark side of our normal world, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Let us know in the comments which country or economic anomaly we should dissect next. Thanks for your time, remember to take a breath and unplug, and we'll see you in the next video.